Hi guys, it's Sherry, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how you can dye fabrics using the ice dyeing technique. To get started, you need a few items. The first one is some soda ash dye fixer. We're going to dilute this into some water, and this is going to help lock in all the colors into your fabric. Then some dyes. The dyes that you pick just depend on the fabrics that you're using. So we're going to be using a few different brands of the jacquard. I've got some acid dyes and some of the natural fiber dyes as well. You're going to need some strainers or a rack to put your items on. So you can either set a rack up like this, just so that way your clothing isn't sitting in a pool of its water. It will drip and drain like that. Or if you wanted to, you can also just get a sort of container and a strainer like that. Just as long as it's not going to be sitting in on itself. We're going to need about 3.7 liters of water to create our soda ash mixture, some gloves. You can also do some rubber bands, any sort of clothing item. We are going to be using mostly natural fibers today because of the types of dyes that I have, and some ice because of the ice dyeing. The first step is to mix up your soda ash solution to prep your shirts. This is 3.7 liters of water, and then I've got 1 cup of the soda ash. The water that I am using is warm water, just because your soda ash will dissolve a lot better in warm water than it will into cold. So while our soda ash dissolves into our water, I'm going to talk to you guys about picking your fabrics and your dyes. So I have got some 100% cotton. I've got 200% cotton t-shirts, and I've got a 100% cotton apron that has been untreated. I've also got a silk scarf, and then I have 2 cotton t-shirts that are 95% cotton and 5% nylon, and they're going to dye slightly different to the 100% cotton. I've also got 2 different types of dyes here. So I've got the acid dyes, and then I've also got my natural base dyes. So these ones have been designed to work majority with just natural fibers. So that's wools, cottons, silks, linens, all of those sort of natural fibers. This one can also work on feathers and nylon as well. So when you are picking your dyes, you just need to consider that to what you are using when you are working with your fabrics. So today I'm going to be using pretty much all natural fabrics, so therefore I'm going to be working with my dyes that work best for natural items. If you were using a lot of synthetic fabrics, you might want to try your RIT dyes that have been designed to work with synthetic fabrics. So it's up to you what dyes you use, but you just want to make sure that they work together. What you also need to do before you start dyeing any of your items is give everything a wash. When they're manufactured, they're put through a lot of chemical processes, and that can still be on the fabric when you get it. So if you try to dye a brand new item, you might notice that your dyes will run off your fabric and not soak in, and that's because they've still got a lot of that treatment all over them. They also might get pesticides on, especially if they're coming from overseas, going through the whole quarantine process that a lot of countries have. So give everything just a wash through your washing machine, just to make sure that they don't have any residue left on them. Once you've got all of your items that you want to dye, the next step is adding them into your soda ash mixture. So what your soda ash does is basically prepares your item for the dye, and that way when you do add your dye on, it's going to lock into that fabric really well. You want to let it soak for about 15 minutes. You can let it soak for a lot longer, but no less than 15 minutes before adding your dye. You can see here that the soda ash has fully dissolved into my water, so it's now time to start adding my clothing items in. And you don't need to do anything special except for just making sure that they're completely soaked through, and they need around 15 minutes. before you can take them out and start adding the dye. You can leave them in for a lot longer if you would like. If you want to just let them soak for a few hours, go off and do something, that's completely fine, but you don't want to leave them in for anything less than 15 minutes. At this stage too, soda ash is fine on your skin, but some people do have a reaction to it, so you're more than welcome to wear gloves. It's just basically the same as some people have reactions to certain types of washing powders. So if you do have sensitive skin, I would recommend just wearing some disposable gloves when you are working with this product. It's been about 20 minutes, so it's time to take these items out. All you want to do is just give them a good squeeze to get all of that liquid out. And you can keep reusing this soda ash mixture until it is completely used up, and you can keep adding to it. It doesn't really have like an expiry from when you mix it up, so if I wanted to, I could add a few more shirts into this mixture and keep going until basically the liquid was all soaked up. I've just pulled out all of my items from the soda ash, and now it is time to start adding the color. I've got all of my trays set up, and I'm going to be using 3 different ones and doing 3 different types of dyes, dyeing color patterns. You don't want to put them all in one container together, especially if you're trying to do different colors, because they're going to blend and leak. So just make sure that if you're going to do, say, like aqua and navy blue type and then a purple and pink type, you keep them separate, because otherwise you'll end up with a whole multitude of colors together. And you can either wrap these up traditionally, like in the traditional tie-dye sense, or what you can do, because the ice is going to create that pattern anyway, is you can just leave them, put the ice on, and as the ice melts, it's going to create some really cool patterns. So that's what I'm going to do for most of these. I will do one where I do wrap it up in that sort of spiral tie-dye effect, but the rest I'm just going to leave scrunched up and place ice on top. So I've got my silk one, which I am just going to leave in my little strainer and colander. I'm going to keep that one separate because it's the only silk item I'm doing. And all I did was expand that one out, and then I'm just placing it in like that, crunching it up a little bit. And then I'm going to place my ice on top of that. And then I'm just going to put all 3 of my cotton, 100% cotton items. They're all going to just have the same effect, and I'm just going to place them in the tray together, and they're all going to get the same colors. So if I wanted to do different colors on each, I would put them in separate trays. Once you've got all of your items set out and ready to go, it is now time to add your ice. I'm just going to be placing this over the top of each item. You want to give a decent amount of coverage, because this ice is going to be what creates those really beautiful effects. And you'll also notice when you do this, if you use different shaped ice, you get slightly different patterns. So the ice that I'm using today is just a bag of ice from a local garage, and it's like the cylinder ice, but you can obviously just use the stuff you've got in your ice tray. I'm just making a few pieces, so I need quite a lot of ice, but you will notice that you get slightly different patterns if you use like cubed ice to circle ice, and it can create some really pretty effects. The thing that I like about tie-dyeing with ice is you can never get anything exactly the same, because the ice will always create a completely unique pattern every time. Now that I've got all the ice down, it is time to start adding my powder dyes. Before you do this, I would recommend doing this in a well-ventilated area or wearing a face mask, because you don't want to be breathing in this powder, and also gloves because it can stain. So I've got a few different colors that I've got. I've got navy, teal, turquoise, and I've got a brown rose and a raspberry. You also need to think about a little bit to do with color theory, that if you mixed all of these together, you might get third colors coming up. You know, if you mix traditionally like a red and a blue, you would get purple. So when you are doing and mixing your colors together, you just need to think about that, because you will get a lot of other colors popping up through. And because these colors are not primary colors, they're going to be made up of other colors to create them. So therefore, when they go onto it, sometimes you can see, like, if you use a black, sometimes you can get little bits of pink coming through, you know, like just different colors that will come up. So that's just something to think about when you are working with this. But it really comes down to trial and error to see what you really like. So once you've got all of your ice covered, and you don't need to have it completely covered, the ice is going to melt, and during that time of it melting, it's going to lock that color in. So if you've ever done tie-dye before, you'd know once you've tie-dyed your item, you would put it into a plastic bag and let it cure for, you know, about 10 to 12 hours. Well, with this, you just let the ice naturally melt. Obviously, the longer the ice takes to melt, the more the color locks in. So if you are in a colder climate and your ice takes longer, you're going to get more vibrant colors. You can also, if you choose to, use a hairdryer or a heat gun to melt it, speed up the process, or just put them outside. I live in Australia and it's already really hot and this ice is already melting. So I'm just gonna leave it be for a few hours and then come back. I'll probably end up finishing the rest of this project off tomorrow. But once the ice has fully melted, you can then rinse out your items. Everything is now dry, and I'm going to show you how all the pieces turned out. The first one is the apron, and this is the untreated cotton, which just had the raspberry and the burnt rose on it, with a little bit of navy that just got put onto it. But you also get some really nice, pretty, like, soft blues from where the colors are blended, and some oranges coming up through. I'm really happy with how this one has turned out. The silk scarf has turned out really beautiful. This is the one that I washed first. So this only was dyeing for about 4 hours, and the reason why I washed this first before all the others is I just wanted to show you the difference between the colors for how long you leave them. So this was 4 hours, and then I fully rinsed it out and washed it and then ironed it, which stopped the coloring process. But then with these tops, which are the 100% cotton tops, I left it for a full 24 hours, and you got really strong, vivid colors with these ones. So the exact same colors were used, but you can see like the real difference in like how strong each one is. You can see how like this one is very bold and bright, and this is a lot more softer, a little bit more pastel-y, because it got washed out sooner. So if you do want it to be a softer color tone, softer hues, wash it out after a few hours. But if you want them to be really bold and bright and vibrant, leave them in for like a good 24 hours and just wait till that ice is completely dissolved, and then give them a good rinse out and wash, because the longer you leave it, the stronger the dye is going to be. So this is the other full cotton shirt, And this was the navy blue, raspberry, and burnt rose. And you get some really beautiful patterns from those, and even like little pops of really soft oranges popping up through that burnt rose, shades of blue. So it is really important to know about like a bit of color theory, but if you are unsure about whether colors are going to work well together, just get a little test strip and test it out before you go and do a whole bunch of clothing. So ribbon is great to use. It's completely up to you, but always give it a little bit of test out. And now these are the nylon and cotton blend. So 95% cotton, 5% nylon. And this one was the one that I did the little swirl in. Which I think's turned out really cool, because not only do you get the ice water effect, but you also get that swirl from wrapping it up in the rubber bands. And that was the turquoise, teal, and navy, and you even get like little shades of violet popping up through. This one, which was just the ice effect, and you even get some soft sort of brown tones in this one as well. And that's also like the 95 and 5% nylon. So a few things to just recap this project is, one, you need to think about what you are dyeing, what kind of fabrics. The dyes that we use today have all been designed to work best with natural fibers. You definitely need to make sure that you do the soda ash soak. This is incredibly important. And also, if you are using any clothing that is new, you need to make sure that you do wash it prior to doing the soda ash soak, just because it will have chemicals on it from that manufacturing process, which will act as a repellent to your dye. So you definitely want to make sure that everything has been just put through the washing machine once. You do your soda ash soak, then you add your colors into your ice dye, and the longer you leave it, the stronger the colors are going to be. Then rinse under cold water. Make sure you rinse out through. You're going to get clearer colors than rinsing in a bucket. If you do rinse in a bucket, you're going to find that your colors might go a little bit muddy. It can still look really cool, but you're just not going to get those really clear defined colors. So it's always best to rinse under cold water. And then just make sure you leave them hanging to dry, and then give them an iron to really lock in all of that color. But now they are perfectly fine to wear and good to go. So I hope you guys all enjoyed this tutorial. Please let me know in the comments below what kind of colors you would use, if this is something you would do. I really had fun doing this ice dyeing technique, and if you want more tutorials to do with dyeing fabrics, please let me know. And if you like this video, give it a big thumbs up, as that really helps me out. It also lets YouTube know to show this video to more people. And if you're new to my channel, please do subscribe, and don't forget to hit that notification bell, so that way you get notified every single time I post a new video. Thank you guys so much for watching.